going on, people? It's the Xbot 448, and today I'm starting a brand new series on my channel. I am calling it Xbot's History in Gaming. The reason I decided to do this was to, kind of let you guys know where I came from, like what I've played from the past going up until now, what made me basically the gamer I am today. So in this first edition, I am going to talk about PlayStation fanboys throughout my history, okay? And one of the main reasons why I decided to start with this topic is because, I heard a lot about like the last gen and bias towards the 360 last gen. Now granted, I believe a lot of people were talking about media bias, but and I wasn't really into gaming media last generation, but I dealt with a lot of things in terms of what we call PlayStation fanboys throughout the 360 era, but I also dealt with it before time. So I want to give you guys, a glimpse into what I've dealt with as a gamer and choosing consoles that weren't Sony. Okay, now I had, starting off gaming, I have nothing against Sony. All right, I had the PlayStation 1. I absolutely loved that system. I played it all the time. All this stuff didn't really start happening until the PlayStation 2 and then the Dreamcast came out. And the biggest thing was I picked the Dreamcast. Like, I wanted the Dreamcast. I was excited for, another Sega console. It seemed like they were going to go all in and not be another kind of like Sega Saturn type situation. I didn't own a Sega Saturn. But before the Sega Saturn, my older brother actually had the Sega Genesis, but he also had the Sega CD and the 32X add-on. I absolutely loved his system. I played Sonic CD. I played a bunch of like flying games and stuff like that with my older brother because that's what he was into. And I had a lot of fun with the Sega console. So I was really excited to, be older and get into this Dreamcast. And that's where the whole me meeting the PlayStation fanboys actually started, because when I picked my Dreamcast, anytime I went to GameStop and tried to get a game for my Dreamcast, there was I would say 99% of the time, and it was horrible. There was always somebody there questioning me on why I didn't have a PlayStation 2, or why I'm not getting this game or that game for PlayStation 2, why I had a Dreamcast. Dreamcast is garbage compared to PlayStation 2. Now, the big thing that they talked about was the games library, and you'll see that theme go on into the next console I purchased after the Dreamcast. But, they were right. The games library was bigger. The thing I liked about the Dreamcast was all the innovation, alright? The peripherals, the memory units. They had what they called visual memory units for the Dreamcast, which was a memory card with a little screen, and it had a direction pad and buttons. Now, for games like Sonic Adventure, you would collect little characters in the game called chows. And you can develop these chows. You can give them like different animals, and they would absorb the attributes of those animals, like rabbits and stuff like that, and that would increase their speed and stuff. Through mid-lifespan, they would actually egg themselves up again, or cocoon themselves up and come out as a mature chow. I absolutely love this in Sonic Adventure, and I used to have my chows in my VMUs. At this time, I was working at Stop and Shop, and for my 15-minute breaks and stuff like that, I would go outside, have my cigarette, and do little mini games with my chows, racing. I would feed them, do stuff like that. The innovation was amazing. Not only that, like if you look at Sega Pro Bass Fishing, it came with the fishing reel peripheral, which I thought was awesome. And, and so on and so on. The game Seaman, where they actually gave you the microphone to be able to talk to that animal. I call it the M&M fish, because it looked like it had Eminem's face, but it was on a fish body. and develop his intelligence and stuff like that. It was really cool, really innovative. And then not only that, but you did have like your regular Crazy Taxi. The Power Stone game was awesome. Shenmue, like what can you say about that game? And it was a system I really liked, but for some reason or another, it wasn't good enough for the people that had a PS2. And I dealt with that a lot. It did turn me off to the PlayStation 2 a little bit, but I'm not going to let other people really dictate my purchases, okay? I had reasons why I like the Dreamcast. Now, I'm going to go a little to the left on this and say it is really good to see the Dreamcast actually getting the notoriety it deserved. It's taken years to do so, but, with the rumors that Sega might be doing a Dreamcast 2 and the petitions and how everybody is now saying they love the Dreamcast and stuff like that. It wasn't like that when the Dreamcast first came out and throughout the Dreamcast generation. I'm not saying that there weren't groups of people who did love the Dreamcast, but there was a lot of like harsh talk about it and stuff like that, and some of it rightfully so. Now, I remember one thing with my Dreamcast that was a pain was the controller ports, the plugins for the controllers. You had the 4 in the front. Those things used to burn out like crazy. I went through 2 Dreamcasts in that generation of gaming because the ports were burning out. Like the Player 1 port didn't work, so I switched off to Player 2. Player 2 ended up not working, and there was a lot of bugs in that hardware. Now, at that point in time, that's really bad, but over the years that Sega finally is getting recognized for the innovation and the types of games and stuff that came out with that system, and I'm really glad that it's come around like this. For people who do hate on the X1, I think eventually over time those people will get a Dreamcast type renaissance in their mind, and they'll be like, wow, like that thing actually did do a lot in its generation. Unfortunately, there are people out there today that just don't see it right now. But moving on, when it comes to these fanboys, when I did get the Microsoft's first console, that OG, it did kind of die down a little bit, alright? Like I said, the theme from when I had the Dreamcast that came over to when I had that OG X was the games library. And, rightfully so. But I heard about it constantly. Anytime I went and picked up another game for my system, I swear there was just somebody else there like, well, hey, what are you getting? Well, why aren't you getting that for PlayStation 2? Oh, you don't have a PlayStation 2? Why? There's so many games for it and stuff like that. And, I hear you. The games library was absolutely huge. One thing I would always come back is, come back to these guys. Once I got, like, fed up with hearing it all the time was, all right, you guys have Halo. And at that point in time, Halo was brand new. It was doing something, in video games that has never been done before. And that would basically shut them up right there. Like, no. Either that or they would go to opposite and say, Halo is overhyped. But you didn't get too much of that because of how new that game was and how big the scope of that game was. And, you can clearly see that was a game that was doing something that has never been done before. But let's speed through that because, like I said, there wasn't too much there. I got a little, I got a little, I guess you could say, vacation per se from that. It wasn't so much. But when I got the 360, that's when basically all hell broke loose. This is when I could say, literally, 99% of the time when I went to go get a 360 game, I heard so many things on why, like, I should have a PS3 and not a 360. And the funny thing is, if the media was so biased, and favoring the 360 at this point, I guess the people I have run into at GameStop time and time again, I guess they just, didn't get into the gaming media as well, or they didn't get the memo, because I heard things like, well, the PS3 is so much more powerful and games run better on the PS3. Like when I was getting multiplats and stuff like that, like Fear 2, and like I was told that all these games literally run better on the PS3. Now that, you know, I'm into the gaming media, I have my YouTube channel and stuff like that, I do go back and I check out like news from the past, and come to find out, half of these things these guys said weren't even true. Alright, so they were making stuff up for whatever rhyme or reason just to make their console better. Alright, just to ask me why I don't have the console that they prefer. Now, with the 360, I mean, what can I say? It was a continuation of Halo, you know, Fable. That's when they came out with Viva Pinata, which was awesome at that time because, you know, I was trying to raise my son with non-violent games. That was a good game that me and him could play that really wasn't violent, you know. And I think it helped a lot with his development, you know, getting older. But, you know, I had an absolute blast with the 360. I did go through a couple of them. Now, none of them were Red Ring of Death or anything like that, which, you know, I hear a lot of people talk about that and how that messed things up for Microsoft and stuff. But, I mean, they did start a campaign and, you know, they did apologize for that in such a way that they were giving out systems. It cost them a ridiculous amount of money to replace systems that dealt with that defect. And we're past that. You know, when a company messes up and fixes it, that shows, you know, that they're at least in some part, you know, looking out for their consumers. Now, you know, you have the whole thing with the PlayStation 3 being $600 at launch and stuff like that. And I was actually thinking about, throughout the generation, I was thinking about picking up a PS3. But one of the main reason why, alright, the main reason why is that it was a Blu-ray DVD player. And at that point in time, it was still the cheapest Blu-ray DVD player out there. Now, if I had picked it up, I would have been able to get into, you know, a couple of the games I had interest in, like Uncharted, for instance. That game really, you know, does spark my interest. I would love to go through and play that. I just don't see buying a whole console for one game. Alright, you know, possibly Little Big Planet. You know, I have 8-year-old twins right now. But, like I said, every time I went to GameStop to try to get 360 games, I was basically harassed by the people on the other side of the store. I'm a very outgoing person. I talk to a lot of people and stuff like that. So if somebody looks at me, I say hi. If that I guess that attracts conversation. But I swear, like, you had people on the PS3 side looking over at the 360 side. I would say hi, they would come over and talk and ask me literally why I got this system when the PS3 runs multi-plat games better, which didn't turn out to be true, and it's just overall more powerful. Now, you know, with the CPU that it had the potential to be more powerful. But unfortunately, that technology, developers could not wrap their heads around it and get the most out of it, at least for a really long, you know, a really long time in that generation. Why would it bother people that I picked that system over that one right there? You know, why I picked the 360 over the PS3? Now we get to this generation. In this generation, it's been absolutely insane. You know, you had the horrendous reveal from Microsoft with the X1, which I say their biggest problem was they didn't explain what they were doing with the system. I looked into the Always Online. I saw some of the features that they were putting out with that. I wanted the Always Online system. I have internet. I pretty much have had internet for years consistently, and it didn't bother me. Now, you know, people got upset about that and said, well, what about, you know, the soldiers overseas, and what about people who don't have online in their homes and stuff like that? But yet, these same people are playing these Destiny and Need for Speed and all these games that require an online connection, and I haven't heard anybody talk about those games and backlash those games, you know, in support of our quote-unquote troops or people who don't have internet in their homes and stuff like that. Not only that, you know, these PlayStation fanboys, they have completely swallowed anything that these suits from Sony had to say. When it came to Sony's reveal and they showed that kind of magician tech demo or whatever, they were adamant that that was a game. All right. When it comes to The Last Guardian, you know, it's been, you know, kind of in and out of the news for like 7 years. Like, where is this game and stuff like that? And then they show it. Doesn't look anything different than the PlayStation 3 version. And, you know, it's justified because it's Sony. But, you know, they have a tendency to talk about the features on the other console as being, you know, garbage or where is it, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, when it comes to the cloud and DirectX 12, it's not going to do anything. Oh, the cloud is just, you know, hype talk and stuff like that. But when it comes to, like, The Last Guardian, when it comes to that tech demo they saw, when it comes to Sony saying 1080p, 60 frames per second, and then, you know, they're coming out with games that don't hit that resolution. I mean, does the PS4 right now play multi-plat games better? Does it run them better? That's that's up for debate in a lot of cases. All right, are they higher resolution? Yeah, but what's to say that Sony isn't telling these developers to kind of sacrifice some of the gameplay in order to hit that resolution? You know. But, you know, I know I'm going to have people hating on this video. I know, you know, just by the title alone, I know people are going to hate on this video. And that's okay. But, you know, I talk about what I feel. And with this first, you know, video in the series, I want to let you guys know where I'm coming from. All right? I gave the PS4 thought, you know, coming into this generation. I wanted to see what both companies were doing for this generation of consoles, and like I said, I like that always online. When they were talking about family share, I really wanted to get into that, and of course, like I love Halo, and you know, I wanted the next iteration of Halo and stuff like that. But I put that to the side, and I wanted to see what these companies were offering in terms of this gen, and I went with the X1, and I am completely happy with that. Not only that, like, when I'm talking about my history, you know, the Dreamcast and the original Xbox and stuff like that, I want to let you guys know, I had a couple friends, shout out to my boys, Mike and John, because we used to hang around with each other every day, and they had a PS2. Same way my brother had a Genesis, they had a PS2, and I was able to play the PlayStation 2 whenever I wanted. There was really no need to, you know, buy it from my house. We were hanging around with each other every day, and the most we played was Grand Theft Auto. I mean, that's what we got into. We would take turns going kind of crazy in that game, seeing how many stars, and you know the deal with Grand Theft Auto, like and groups of people, see how many stars and how long you can maintain it, all that good stuff. But that's what we did, and I had no problem not picking up the PlayStation 2 for my house. Not only that, there was the Nintendo 64, which I was really into the wrestling games, like the WrestleMania 2000, WCW versus NWO, like during that whole generation. And I would play my 64 as well, just because it still had those games, and they were still making those wrestling games and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like, you know, a walk through time with me and dealing with these Sony fanboys. If you like this series, if you like the first video of this series, definitely let me know. You know, hit that thumbs up, comment. I want to know if you guys have been through the same thing, you know, throughout your years of gaming, and which console like you decided to get into and purchase first. If you haven't subscribed yet, definitely do so. And share the video, especially if you liked it. Share the video, hit it up, put it up on Twitter. You know, let's get this video out there. But as for now, this is the Xbot 448, and I am definitely signing off.